you hear it first. The crack of stone splitting under iron rams. Not thunder. No, this is sharper, hungrier. A low rumble builds from the walls, like the earth itself groaning awake. Then the screams cut through, thin and sharp as shattered pottery. Smoke stings your eyes, thick with the bite of burning olive wood from sacred groves, long untouchable. Your hands tremble on the cool marble of Athena's robe, the goddess's statue looming silent above you in the shadowed Parthenon. Footsteps now heavy, Roman boots grinding dust into the temple floor. Laughter bubbles up from throats raw with victory, mingled with the wet choke of a plea silenced forever. The air tastes of salt and fear, sweat and spilled wine from altars overturned. One door splinters, another, and in that instant, as torchlight dances on gilded shields, you see them, shadows with swords, eyes gleaming like wolves scenting the fold. 8,000 voices like yours, scattered across Greece's holy places, wait in the dark. They came for gold. They stayed for souls. What follows pulls no punches. This tale lays bare sexual violence, the desecration of the sacred, and a war machine that chewed through lives like chaff. These horrors are etched in stone and scroll, drawn from the bones of history. If the weight presses too hard, pause, step into light. For those who remain, we chase not the thrill of the wound, but the gears that ground purity to dust. Understanding spares no one, but it arms us against echoes still ringing. Imagine a world where gods walked marble halls, their maidens sworn to silence and flame. Athens, cradle of wisdom, jewel of the Hellenes, stood as its crown in the winter of 87 BC, not some fevered backwater, but the pulse of philosophy, where Plato's shades still whispered in olive-shaded academies. Rome, that iron republic across the sea, hungered for more than trade routes. It craved the East's glittering veins, Asia's ports, Pontus's gold. Enter Mithridates, king of that Black Sea realm, a fox in silk, who turned Greek cities against their Roman masters. In one autumn slaughter, his orders rang out. 80,000 Italians in Asia, merchants and mothers alike, throats slit in their beds. The Vespers, they called it later, a dusk of knives. Rome roared back, not with diplomats, but legions, and at their head, Lucius Cornelius Sulla, a man forged in patrician fire, his blue eyes cold as Cilician steel. This wasn't conquest born of glory. This was accounting debts of blood tallied in temple vaults. Sulla's veterans, those scarred wolves who tasted Numidian dust and Marian betrayal, marched not for empire's dream, but for the ledgers of revenge. They sacked not cities, but sanctuaries, turning priestesses' vows into chains. 8,000 maidens, sworn to Artemis's hunt or Athena's shield, became the war's hidden toll numbers blurred in smoke, but souls sharp as daggers in the dark. Why does this echo now, 2 millennia on? Because the machine that devoured them hums in every border crossed for security, every holy site bombed for strategy. We listen to reclaim what blades erased. Lucius Cornelius Sulla wasn't spawned from monsters. He clawed up from Rome's patrician fringes, a family name faded like old frescoes. Born in 138 BC to a line of senators who'd lost their edge, young Lucius scraped by and rented rooms above actor dens, his nights thick with cheap wine and cheaper laughs. No silver spoon debts nipped his heels until 2 windfalls struck. An aunt's inheritance, then a wife's dowry from a merchant's vault. By 30, he traded dice for armor, joining Gaius Marius's African hunt for Jugurtha, that Numidian snake. Sulla's guile shone there, bribing a turncoat ally. He dragged the king in chains, his first taste of glory's bitter tang. Marius, that populist bull, claimed the credit, but Sulla's eyes narrowed. Betrayal brewed. The Republic teetered then, a colossus on cracked clay. Senators hoarded power like misers, while tribunes like Sulpicius stirred the plebs with land promises and grain riots. Sulla, quaestor turned praetor, climbed the ladder slick with rivals' blood. In 88 BC, the Mithridatic command fell to him consul's prize, a fleet to scour the east. But Marius, gray and hungry, snatched it back with mob votes. Sulla didn't weep. He marched on Rome itself, first general to turn legion against Forum. His men, those loyal shadows from African sands, butchered 800 in the streets. Sulpicius's head spiked on a spear. Marius fled like smoke. The machine ticked on. Sulla sailed east, leaving a republic scarred, its veins open for his return. That formative scar? Not birth, but the march. As his troops crossed the Pomerium, Rome's sacred boundary, thunder cracked the sky, Jupiter's nod. Or so priests spun it, Sulla wept, not for the dead, but the line blurred. Citizen became enemy, law a suggestion. In Greece, that fracture widened. Mithridates' shadow loomed, his Greek allies from Athens to Thebes barricading harbors, their tyrants drunk on Pontic gold. Sulla landed at Piraeus' ruins, his veterans' boots already muddied with Italian gore. They weren't boys anymore. 20 campaigns hardened them. Jugurtha's dust, Teutoburg winds, now this. Holy hills hiding traitors. Paranoia wasn't madness, it was method. Spare no one who harbors the king's coin, he ordered, and the ledgers filled, villages torched, senators strung from oaks. The man who joked with actors now tallied heads like harvest sheaves. One night in Boeotia, after Chaeronea, where Archelaus's phalanx shattered like glass, Sulla stared at the moonlit dead. 15,000 Pontic corpses, Greek conscripts among them. Fortune favors the bold, he murmured, but his hand shook on the wine cup. The gods whispered approval or warning. He chose the former, and the machine ground on. 3 months into the siege, and Athens choked. Winter 87 BC clung like a shroud, the air heavy with frost and famine's sour reek. From the Pnyx hill, Sulla's camps sprawled a sea of red tents, siege towers clawing at the sky like iron fingers. 10,000 mules hauled timber daily, their brays a dirge under the long walls. Athens, that eternal city, huddled behind her ramparts, her tyrant Erechtheion, a philosopher turned despot, his beard stained with banquet leavings mocking from the battlements. Sulla, you bald adulterer, he'd bellow, his archers loosing shafts at envoys. The Acropolis loomed above, its Parthenon a beacon of ivory and gold, Athena's eyes blind to the noose tightening below. In the temple's inner sanctum, Irene moved like mist. 20 summers old, daughter of a Kerameikos potter, she'd been chosen at 12, her hands steady on the peplos, her voice clear in the dawn hymns. No husband, no hearth. Her world was flame and fleece, the goddess's eternal vigil. Mornings, she'd sweep the cella, her chitin whispering against cool flagstones, inhaling myrrh from braziers that never dimmed. Afternoons brought the maidens 800 in Athens alone, sworn sisters from every deme, their laughter light as lyre strings as they wove saffron threads for the Panathenaea. Irene led them, her dark hair bound in a fillet, her eyes the green of Attic olives. She dreamed of peace processions, not this, rationed barley, mothers gnawing boot leather by lamplight. Whispers crept in Sulla's men stripping sacred groves, Plato's academy felled for rams. The goddess protects her own, Irene told the girls, her palm on a trembling shoulder. But at night, alone with the statue's unblinking gaze, doubt coiled like incense smoke. The confrontation brewed slow, a storm over the Aegean. Sulla's heralds came first, olive branches in fist, demanding surrender. Aristion's reply, a severed head, some consular envoys hurled from the gates. Sulla's face hardened vengeance now calculus. No quarter for traitors, he decreed, and the rams fell silent only to sharpen. Irene felt it in the earth, vibrations like a god's footfall. One eve, as maidens kindled lamps, a scout's horn wailed from the walls. Pontic sails on the horizon Archelaus, Mithridates' hound, with 20,000 spears, hope flickered. But Sulla pivoted, his legion slicing the relief like a scythe through wheat. Chaeronea, that bloody plain, swallowed 10,000 Greeks in a day. Irene heard the refugees' limping shadows clutching icons, their tails of fields soaked red. He fights like Ares unchained, one gasped. The choice loomed, yield or feed the machine. Aristion chose defiance, his feasts raging louder. Irene chose prayer, her knees raw on marble, whispering to Athena, shield us as you shielded the Argo. Dawn of the first day, and the act unfolded not in blaze, but whisper. Sulla's spies, old men bribed in the agora, slipped word of a weak seam in the Heptachalkon wall, that 7-gated stretch by the Ilissos. Marcus Ateius, his tribune, led the breach at midnight, torches guttering in wind. No fanfare, just the grind of picks, then a roar as stone gave way. Irene woke to it, the temple quaking, dust sifting from beams. To the goddess, she urged, herding maidens to the cella, veils drawn tight. But the flood came, veterans in Lorica, swords thirsty, eyes wild with months of want, not for gold first, but flesh promises of Athenian beauties whispered around campfires. Doors splintered, altars toppled. Irene pressed against the statue's base, a girl's sob echoing hers. The implication hung thick, vows broken not by choice, but conquest's cold math. No blades flash described, just the hush after a veil torn, a plea fading into shadow. 800 in this temple alone, across Greece's shrines, the tally climbed. The machine didn't rage, it consumed. Word spread like fever through the city. By morning, the Kerameikos ran red, blood pooling in potters' wheels, washing to the Dipylon in rivulets. Sulla rode in at noon, his horse shying from the charnel reek, but his gaze swept clinical tally the dead, crate the spoils. This wasn't about one maiden's cry, a centurion muttered later, ale-soured breath hot on a comrade's ear. It was the Republic's due every Greek who cheered Mithridates' pays in kind. Historians later penned it so, not frenzy, but policy. Temples stripped bare, their maidens parceled like amphorae, some to Roman beds, others to oblivion's arms. Irene, gone by dusk, her fillet trampled in the dust. But in Volgograd's shadows, a modern echo stirs. Women in sacred robes, caught in siege lines, their sanctity just another spoil for the taking. But that was merely the hinge. The true grind waited in the hills. Shift now to Lucius, a veteran from the Italian mud. 30 campaigns under his belt, his scarred knuckles wrapped round a pilum's haft. He wasn't the wolf howling first. No, Lucius tallied the aftermath, his wax tablet marking crates from the Erechtheion. Tripods, 16, gold owls, 42, maidens, uncounted. From his vantage on the Areopagus, he'd watch the breach, the veterans pouring like ants on honey. Orders were clear, he'd tell his dice mates later, voice flat as Campanian plain. Plunder the ports feed the siege. But Piraeus burned first Archelaus's arsenal torched to ash, its flames licking the long walls like a lover's tongue. Lucius led the foray there, his squad kicking in warehouse doors, hauling amphorae of Pontic wine, silks from Bactria. Incentives flowed downhill, a share per man, double for captains, triple if you dragged back useful captives. The machinery hummed who reported to whom, centurions to tribunes like Ateius, tribunes to Sulla's quaestor, all wired to the general's tent. Efficiency, Sulla called it, his blue eyes scanning ledgers by lamplight. The spread was methodical, a web spun from Athens's corpse. Delphi, next that navel of the world, its oracle's fumes still curling from fissures. Sulla's riders galloped north, 8 days through Boeotian snow, to the Amphictyon's pleas. "Spare the god's house," the priest begged, scrolls unrolled like olive branches. Sulla's reply, a laugh, cold as Phocian stone. "Apollo owes me for Chaeronea." His men, 2 cohorts, fresh from Orchomenos' slaughter, cracked the vaults. Gold ingots, the size of a man's thigh, a silver crater too heavy for one cart. Maidens there, 2 Pythia's attendants, veiled in white, their chants cut short by rough hands. Not 800, but 200, bundled south like temple lambs. Lucius arrived late, assigned to guard the wagons, his stomach turning at the muffled sobs beneath tarps. Whole sanctuaries emptied, he scrawled in a letter home, ink blotting like tears. Not for wrath, but the fleet's belly. Incentives bit deep. A denarius per talent hauled, a legion's pardon for the looter who found the Pythia's hidden cache. Breathe here, amid the absurdity. Picture Lucius pausing at Delphi's spring, the Castalian waters clear as a virgin's vow, sipping while veterans diced over a fallen tripod. One man, gap-toothed from Teutoburg, pocketed a bronze owl, muttering, "For my girl's dowry," ironic that a father's gift from a god's eye. Or the quiet detail, a maiden's dropped fillet, saffron thread snagged on laurel, fluttering like a prayer unanswered. Contrast it with the march south, olive branches budding defiant under boot heels, beauty mocking the blade. These breaths, these slivers of human amid the grind, they remind. Even machines rust with doubt. From Epidaurus came the fever dream reports. Asclepius's shrine, that haven of healing vapors, yielded cauldrons of bronze, serpents coiled in gold. Sulla's orders spread like plague. take what mends the republic. Villages along the Saronic Gulf fell silent, their girls, temple dancers, hymn weavers yoked to carts with the tripods, numbers blurred. 2,000 from the Peloponnese alone, estimates whispered in Theban taverns. Lucius saw the tallies climb, his tablet heavy as sin. One brief moment etched sharp, near Nemea, a survivor, a potter's widow. Keaton, torn but eyes like flint, slipped a dagger into a sentry's ribs. For my daughter, she spat, before the noose. The machine adapted, tighter chains, faster marches, but the crack showed deserters murmuring of omens, crows wheeling over wagons like judgment's own. What happened next would sunder even Sulla's iron. Slow it now, stretch the thread to breaking. Spring 86 BC, and the Acropolis gleamed defiant, its propylaea a lion's maw barring the heights. Athens below lay gutted market stalls, splintered. The agora a pyre of scrolls and bones. Sulla's veterans circled the rock, their siege a noose of catapults and hunger. Thirst clawed deepest. The Eridanus spring choked with debris, aquifers poisoned by Pontic spite. Erechtheion held the summit, his revels a mad hymn, wine from looted cellars, meat from sacred herds. But the maidens, Irene's sisters, 200 strong, huddled in the Erechtheion's porch, their Korai statues silent witnesses. They'd refuse the descent, vowing chastity to the end. Better the goddess's shade than Roman shadow, one murmured, her voice a reed in wind. The peak came not in storm, but seep. Sulla, sated on lower spoils, eyed the heights' lure. Athena's peplos, ivory unbound. His order whispered through ranks. The rock falls, gentle or not at all. Lucius drew the short lot, scaling the west cliff under moonless sky. Ropes biting palms, raw as resolve. No clash of arms, just the scrape of hobnails on limestone. Breaths held against the void. At dawn, they crested 20 shadows, slipping past the caryatids, those maiden pillars frozen in eternal poise. The sanctum doors yielded to a ram's kiss, soft as a lover's sigh. Inside, flame guttered low. The maidens rose, fillets aglow, their chant a wall of sound. Pallas Athene, shield eternal. Swords stayed sheathed implications blade sharper. Hands reached, not to kill, but claim. Veils lifted, vows unraveled in the half-light. 8,000 across the league, but here, the heart 200 souls bartered for the Republic's peace. Time dilated. A girl's gasp echoed eternal. No gore spilled in tale, just the hush after statues toppled, their marble eyes averted. The crack, not in stone, but spirit. A veteran faltered, Lucius among them, his pilum dropping as a maiden's gaze met his green as Irene's, unbreaking. Fortune turns, he whispered, the machine stuttering. Sulla stormed up later, finding crates half-filled, men adrift, overreach, the gods' wrath or conscience's whisper. Erechtheion surrendered, parched, his poison cup Sulla's gift. The Acropolis cracked, not fell. Resistance bloomed in whispers, exiles slipping to Marius's shadow. The perpetrator bent, not broke, but the system? Its gears ground finer, hungrier for Rome. Sulla sailed west that summer, his prows heavy with Delphi's gold, Epidaurus's serpents. Athens smoldered behind, her maidens tally a ghost in ledgers 8,000, blurred to spoils acquired. He landed at Brundisium, 40,000 veterans at heel, their packs bulging with Greek vows shattered. Civil war reignited, Marius dead in marsh fever, but his sons in Carbo's shadow legions barred the Appian way. Sulla's machine adapted proscriptions posted, heads for talent, widows' lands for loyal swords. By 82 BC, the Colline Gate ran with Samnite blood, 6,000 prisoners butchered in cold dawn. Dictator at last, he reformed the Senate bloated, tribunes muzzled, but the wheel spun on. His fate? Avila's quiet in 78 BC, guts dissolving from excess, his last laugh a jest at actors' feet. Survivors? Athens staggered, her economy a husk, temples barren as winter fields. Power shifted east, Mithridates crushed later by Lucullus, but the grudge lingered. Greece, a Roman province in all but name. Ironic twist. Sulla's IOUs to Delphi, scrawled promises of repayment, became the oracle's richest vain tourists' coins today, funding the gods he robbed. Long term, the Republic's husk cracked wider, Caesar's shadow long from Sulla's mold. Maidens' lines faded, fewer girls to the flame, more to the loom. But the machine, it colonized hearts, turning sacred into state. Dust settled slow on the Acropolis, but memory clings like lichen. Fast forward to 1832 Athens, when Ludwig Ross, that Prussian dreamer with a trowel, clawed through Ottoman rubble. Not for gold, but ghosts, he unearthed the Parthenon's frieze shards, maidens mid-procession, their folds rent by time and torch. Sulla's hand, he noted in journals, tracing scorch marks on ivory chips. Tangible, human. A fillet fragment, saffron thread woven with prayer beads, clutched in a digger's palm. Then Joan Breton Connolly, 2007's voice from Yale's stacks, pieced the priestess puzzle stellae from Eleusis, inscriptions naming Irene-like souls, their keys to temples long plundered. Women led the rites, she wrote, until blades claimed the keys. Archaeology proved it. Burn layers from 86 BC, altars toppled, maiden graves hasty under sacred groves. What it showed? Not just loss, but resilience, vows etched in stone, outlasting Sulla's ledgers. Why matters now? Ground it simple. In Sarajevo's shelled mosques, 1,990 seconds, or Yemen's bombed shrines today, the echo rings. Power doesn't sack for wrath. It accounts sacred spaces as ATMs, maidens as collateral. This teaches resistance isn't the blade, but the vow unbroken, the story retold. Human nature? We build machines to tally triumph, but they count souls in shadows. Transcends the event. When empires eye the holy, it's never just stone that falls. It's the light we swear to keep. Return to that midnight breach, the Parthenon unyielding. But now, see the change. Torches quenched, not by swords, but time's patient hand. Restored columns rise, maiden statues repatriated, their gazes fierce again. Those 8,000 were meant to vanish, vows silenced, names dust. But they didn't. They endure in Plutarch's ink, Ross's shards, Connolly's pages, in the Acropolis's hush, where winds carry old chants. And now they're here with you, because you chose to listen. If this machine's grind stirs something, rage, resolve, a vow of your own, drop it below. What sacred line would you defend? Your words keep the story's flame,